Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. My name is Evan McCauley, president of the club, and we are thrilled to have you joining us today. This meeting broadcast is available on HCTV as well as our Rotary of Hudson YouTube channel. Our club meets weekly at Laurel Lake for breakfast on Wednesday mornings from 7:15 to 8:30 a.m. Come out and join us for a meeting. We'd love to have you as a guest. To learn more about Rotary, our club, and the impact that we are having on the local community and world, please visit rotaryhudson.org. Enjoy the meeting today and be the inspiration.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by Lynn Supp.
Never heard it before. Good morning, Rotarians. Join me in this short prayer. Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to be here this morning. May we be open to other ideas and beliefs, respectful of our differences. May we grow in understanding of our own motives, knowing that people often act out of their own fears. May we be a force for replacing fear with insight, helping us all to be patient and kind as we talk. Strength can always find compromise. Working together, may we find a common ground, enable us to move forward with a shared purpose. May we see what is truly important and unites us, focusing on community today and always. Amen.
Amen. And lead us in the pledge and the four-way test, Bob Krampf.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And lead us in song, Chris Parker.
Thank you. All right, Rotarians and guests, today we're going to be singing This Land Is Your Land. So if everyone would, we know. My computer does it sometimes. It just okay. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me. As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. And now to introduce our guests.
Thank you. All right, guests, now that you got to sing that lovely song, thank you so much. I would like to announce all the guests that have joined us today. If they could please stand when I call their names so we can give them a warm Rotary welcome. We have Joe Crean. He's a guest of Sue Carter. Thanks for joining us today, Joe. And then Den Rich decided to fill a table of his own. So with Den today is his lovely wife, Mary. We have former Mayor Bill Curran, Tom and Gretchen Green. Thanks for joining us today. And then we have Chris Foster, candidate Chris Foster's wife, Lisa Foster. Thank you so much for joining us. And then we have a guest of Mimi Becker, Ann Brickley. Thank you for joining us today. And we have another candidate who was here last week, Kate Schlotteman. Thank you for joining us again today. Then we have Ted Olson from the Clock Tower Rotary. I have a guest today, Terry Bortnick. Thank you so much for joining us. My friend Chris Stroke is here, and then thank you. And we have Paul Campbell, who read about this in the Hub and thought he would join us. And I'm really not introducing the candidates today since they're going to be able to come up here and we're going to learn a lot more about them. So thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. And now, our president-elect, Marilyn Orr.
Good morning, Rotarians. This is a one and done for hopefully this month. Tom is unfortunately called away, so I'll be filling in for him this morning, and thank you for your patience. First of all, there are just 4 things that we need to address today. The first is that this Friday, the Interact Pinning is happening at Western Reserve. In attendance on that day, Friday, is going to be Evan McCauley and Jim Ahern. If you'd like to join them, they'll be pinning the officers, the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. There are 40 young people involved with that club, and they're very enthusiastic. So if you're interested in attending, contact either Evan or Jim. Secondly, I'd like to ask Mike Swain to please come forward. He's going to talk about a project that's going on with the Service Learning Club at the Hudson High School.
Hi, everybody. This is just a reminder of the announcement that I made last week. The high school service learning group has a retreat at Camp Ledgewood. This is an annual kind of thing, and they go to the camp and help do maintenance projects around the camp as a service project, and also prepare donation baskets for things like food pantries, Valor Home of Summit County, and so on. So we just ask for volunteers, going out and meet some of the students, spend some time with them, and help them with their service projects. So far, we've got a couple of Rotarians that are going to be showing up, but we'd like to have a few more. Unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town, and a couple of our other regulars that get involved with the service learning program are going to be out of town. So we'd like to get some new people out there. Thanks. Thanks, Marilyn.
The kids are always so enthusiastic. We kind of just, that needs to be done over there, that needs to be done over there. So anyway, the third announcement is that the gala is having its organizational meeting this Friday, and it's essentially a kickoff. If you're interested in joining the gala committee, it's a wonderful group of people. We really get a good thing going, and it's the major fundraiser for our organization. So give it some consideration. It's a lot of fun, and of course, the outcome is awesome for this club. And then lastly, in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, the 1st of November, we'll be kicking off the rose sale. So keep that in mind. Of the people that you'd like to gift with roses, this is our major fall fundraiser, and Tom Page will be again heading that up. So thank you very much. I'd like to call George forward, and let's get on with the rest of this program. Thank you.
Good morning, Rotarians. And also welcome to all of our guests here today, and also those of you who are watching on Hudson Community Television. For all 5 Wednesdays during October, we have been hearing from candidates running for local election, beginning with the city council races for all 4 wards, and concluding on the final Wednesday of this month with the race for mayor. Each of these races is contested, and in several cases, the incumbent has chosen not to run again. Thus, no matter what the outcome, the face of local government will change, and perhaps its direction as well. Our format for this morning and all other meetings will be 5-minute presentations from each of the candidates, and that will take place here at the podium. And after the 2 presentations, we will have an open question and answer session with the candidates seated to my left. They will have 90 seconds to respond to your questions. Fellow Rotarian Chris Barker, who's over there in the maroon, will act as timekeeper. She will give warnings when 60 and 30 seconds are left. and also when time is up. I will act as moderator, and I request audience members to be respectful of all of our candidates here this morning. So today we will hear in alphabetical order from City Council candidates for Ward 2. Our first speaker is Chris Foster. He has lived in Hudson since early childhood and graduated from Hudson High School in 1986. He went on to earn degrees in international business and marketing from Schiller University in Heidelberg, Germany. Chris has numerous technology certifications from Cisco, Microsoft, and Novell, and is the president and CEO of Group Interest Enterprise Media, which is a business-to-business media company employing over 100 professionals in Valley View. He is married to Lisa Foster, who was introduced this morning, and has 3 children, all of whom have attended Hudson schools. He is an avid beekeeper and provides Foster's Meadow honey to several local stores. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Chris Foster.
Well, I didn't remember I wrote that. That was great. Thank you. Thank you to the Rotary Club for hosting this event. My name is Chris Foster, and for those of you who don't know me, I've lived here a very long time. My parents moved to Hudson from Sandy Hook, Connecticut in 1969, 50 years ago, when I was 1, because it reminded them of home. I grew up on Glastonbury in Layton Estates, which was one of the larger communities in Hudson at the time. The entire developments of Canterbury, Londonderry, Nicholson didn't exist, and what you call Chad's Ford, we called Kapczynski's Field. My neighbors were Bill Reed, who founded Boy Scout Troop 777, the very troop my oldest son earned his Eagle Scout from. Myself, I was at Troop 321 at the log cabin, and the Rotary Club is the sponsor of that log cabin. On the other side were Barb and Paul Heinzerling, and my oldest friend, Mark Heinzerling. I grew up in Hudson schools. My mother worked as a school librarian at the elementary school, and later followed me to the middle school. In high school, I'm fairly sure I remain one of the only people to have taken 4 years of Spanish, 4 years of German, and 3 years of French, all at the same time. And with a bit of confidence from participating in our German exchange program and Roland Windsor, frankly the best German teacher ever, I moved to Germany, where I attended college and met my wife of 29 years. I earned degrees in international business and international marketing, with minors in accounting and classic German literature. I did this by the age of 20, taking between 19 and 24 credit hours per semester, while working on weekends and mornings cleaning windows to make ends meet. And as I reflect back on that, I don't think I ever had more free time in my life. My wife and I purchased our first home the year we married in 1990 on Hudson Drive. It was a pleasure talking to the gentleman who bought that house from me last week when I knocked on his door. And this is a little emotional because when I knocked on the door, I asked him how long he had lived there. And he said he had lived there for 26 years. And I said, wow, you bought this house from me. And he goes, oh, you must have been the young couple with that little girl. And that day, that little girl was trying on wedding dresses, my daughter. So after that, we moved to Towbridge while that development was still being built. My wife and I have lived on Atterbury for the last 15 years, and now we live on Walters Road. I've jokingly been called the Ward 2 man because I've owned 4 homes in Ward 2. I guess that's right. We put our time, energy, and talents into those areas in our lives that matter at the time. Outside of my family, that's primarily been my business. I donate almost 10% of annual profits to charity. I pay for nearly all medical benefits for employees and their families. That includes 100% tuition for ongoing education. I match people's 401ks and even their college loan repayments to make it easier on younger people as they start their careers. My last audit showed the average woman at my business made $68 more per year than the average man. The average man told me they'd like that corrected next year. And if you have a child at my business, we provide 3 months of paid maternity leave. Every year you work for me, you bank 2 weeks of paid leave of absence, sabbatical time. You're eligible to take that sabbatical every 5 years. I own these decisions, and for that, along with transparency and clear communication, I was named by the Industry Media Association the best company to work for in the publishing industry. As a Hudson resident, I've noticed changes within the community and outside. Benefits other communities receive, such as rec centers, citywide collection, recycling programs, even broad salting of roads, clearing of streets in a timely manner, or even streets that look good. Watching my own community, I've seen a city council ignore good investments like the YDC, make poor investments such as Velocity Broadband, squander money rather than treating it like their own. I would have asked more from the community regarding Phase 2 prior to investing millions of dollars and been more transparent about the financial deal. I would still like to know exactly what it's costing me as a taxpayer. I've experienced the heavy-handedness of city development projects and heard the term, "we have the right of way," too many times. I support connectivity, but you can work a plan with residents or you can bulldoze them. It is time we changed how the city operates. I remember the city of Hudson when we were a quiet community, considered remote with 5,000 residents in a disconnected village and township. Today we're 23,000 residents in a city, yet it still feels like a disconnected village. Again, we put our time, energy, and talent into those things we believe were important at the time, and for the next 4 years I intend on working less at the office and more in the community to right-size our budgets and realign our direction as a community. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Our second speaker, Lisa Radigan, graduated from The Ohio State University and went on to earn a JD degree from American University's Washington College of Law. She began her career as an attorney with Jones Day before joining Diebold Incorporated in 2014, where she is currently Vice President and Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer for the company. Following Casey Weinstein's election to the Ohio House of Representatives, Lisa was unanimously appointed by City Council in early 2019 to fill Casey's unexpired term as Ward 2 councilperson. She is now running for a full term. Lisa and her husband Chris have 2 young children and live in Village West. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Lisa Radigan.
Thank you. And thank you to the Rotary and to everyone for coming out today and watching us on HCTV. I'm Lisa Radigan. I'm thrilled to be here. As was just mentioned, I was appointed to be the Ward 2 representative to City Council just in February of this year. Since that time, I've really prioritized listening to residents and driving results on projects that matter to them. I moved to Hudson a little more than 5 years ago when I was appointed as Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer at Diebold Nixdorf, which is a global publicly traded company in North Canton, just across the street from the Akron-Canton Airport. When we looked around Northeast Ohio for places to settle and raise our family, Hudson very quickly rose to the top of our list. We were drawn to the historic downtown and the city's clear commitment to remaining a relevant and vibrant place for residents. I can recall sitting on the patio at One Red Door after a day of house hunting and thinking, wow, this is such a wonderful community. What a great place to put down roots. And put down roots we did. Our son Milo, who's now 6, was about 18 months old at the time. We brought our daughter Parker home from the hospital to the house that we bought in Village West. We've made a life here. We've been welcomed by our neighbors and the community in ways that we couldn't fully anticipate or appreciate until we got here. It's a special place. As our family grew and became more settled, and my husband Christian and I adjusted to our new jobs, I began to look at ways in which I could be more involved in Hudson and in Northeast Ohio. I've actively participated in local nonprofits like the Cleveland Legal Aid Society and the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center. But when the opportunity to be directly involved in my community arose, I jumped at the chance to apply for an open council seat. Now, I'm not a politician, but I have a deeply ingrained desire to participate actively and constructively in my community. Truth be told, I wasn't entirely sure it was the right time to jump into the political arena at all. When I told friends I was thinking of applying for the open council seat, the most common reaction I got was, wow, better you than me. But I was, and I remain convinced that Hudson needs a voice like mine to step up. A voice that has the legal and business judgment, sure, but also a voice that's collaborative and positive. We need different voices and perspectives on council. I haven't lived here my whole life, but I'm raising my family here. I chose to come here, and I plan to stay. My only interest is in making sure Hudson continues to be a place that people choose to come and that people choose to stay. As a compliance professional and an attorney working at a multi-billion-dollar global company, I'm often faced with complex issues that take creativity, compromise, and a clear understanding of objectives to resolve. You might think, as the lawyer and the compliance person, that I'm the one who always has to say no or throw up roadblocks, but you'd be wrong. It's easy to say no. It's easy to criticize something that someone wants to do. It's a lot harder to listen and really understand what they're trying to accomplish and say, you know what, I don't think we can do it quite that way, but let's work together and find a constructive way forward. I've done this hard work for many years professionally. I can count on one hand the number of times I've had to say no to someone over the years, and far more often we can find a collaborative solution. And I take that same approach with council. The work of council involves both large and sometimes very small projects. Since I've joined, we've certainly had a number of large-scale projects come to a head. I'm sure we'll cover those projects here today. So I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about the small projects, the everyday projects that impact people's lives, that I've had the great fortune and privilege to be able to help with in just a short period of time. Very early on, after I had been appointed, a resident reached out to me to complain about people speeding down the street where his children play. I was able to say, sure, let me talk to the chief of police. Let's see if we can up the patrols in your area. In another instance, neighbors were concerned about a development project that was occurring behind their property. It's not phase 2. The builder had expanded construction into their yards, and I was able to connect them with the right team at the city and with the builder to make sure that concerns were addressed. Those are just 2 examples that I've heard and responded to over my short 8 months on council. Now, are these difficult problems that required extensive time and energy? Not really. I met with the residents, I figured out a reasonable path forward. But they're incredibly important ones that impact people's daily lives, and they're the reason I've enjoyed my time on council so much. But I'm just getting started. I've hit my stride. I have a great understanding of how the city works and how we can accomplish big and small things for our residents, and I'm ready to continue to roll up my sleeves. Thank you.
I will invite both of the candidates to come up and have a seat, and just please remember to turn on the mic if you would. As I said at the beginning, our format will be we're going to solicit questions from the audience. If you want them addressed by by a specific candidate, say so. If you are asking both candidates, they'll say that as well. I'm going to begin the question and answer session with a question that I also asked of our candidates last week. And that is that Hudson has had for a very, very long time a city manager form of government with a bipartisan council, neither Republican nor Democrat. So I would like to ask each of the candidates, what is your view on city government? Would you keep the current form of government, or would you change it?
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. So thank you for that question. I think the current form of city government is one that we should keep. Having a professional city manager who's nonpartisan, who's trained in how to manage a city, I think is good. It's not easy figuring out how to manage a disparate group of people, the intricacies involved in ensuring that city services are being provided in an appropriate way. Thank you. And we need to keep that. Having that professional voice, I think, is important. You know, if you look around Northeast Ohio and at other communities, I think you can tell which ones have a city manager form of government and which one have a more political mayor form of government. Hudson politics are and should be nonpartisan. It's the way that I approach council. It's the way that I think we all should be approaching council. There shouldn't be anything partisan about making sure that our roads are cleared, our leaves are picked up, and that we're advancing the needs of the community. Introducing a partisan type of atmosphere into City Hall, and in particular into the management position of City Hall, I think would be a real disservice to the community. This is something that has functioned well for a long time, and I hope we can continue it.
Well, I can do this probably in a little less time. I would say, I absolutely agree. I think the city manager form of government in the city of Hudson is the way it should stay. I don't see any reason we should change whatsoever. There's no reason that we need to change our staff with every single election in this community. We should keep the structure as is.
Okay, thank you. We have lots of people here, so I assume there's lots of questions. So hold up your hand if you have a question. And back there.
Thank you both. I am very much interested and terribly concerned about the nonpartisan nature. I'd really like to know if any of our candidates have responded to the Republican Party club questionnaire seeking the club's endorsement. Are either of you involved with that movement?
It's I'll start because obviously that's targeted, pointed towards me. So yeah, no, that's fine. I was endorsed by the Republican Club of Hudson in the same way people are endorsed by various groups or organizations. Being endorsed by the Republicans Club doesn't mean that I plan on introducing partisan politics in the city of Hudson. But, it's funny, when you go door to door and you knock on somebody's door, the number of times somebody actually said, Republican or Democrat. So we do that as a community every time we knock on somebody's door. And I typically say, it's a nonpartisan election. That doesn't stop them. They still want to know. And I say, well, you can look it up. I'm a Republican. That's okay. And sometimes it ends right there. Other times people say, well, there's no excuse for Trump. And I say, well, you're right. But, Hillary Clinton didn't have the moral high road either, right? So at that point, they say, okay, well, let's talk about the issues in Hudson. And that's where it goes. So, the fact that I got an endorsement doesn't mean that I plan on changing the city structure in any way, shape, or form. It's more, I was endorsed by somebody who had similar fiscal beliefs and believes in small government. That's all there is.
So I did receive the questionnaire from the Republican Club of Hudson. I wrote back and said, thank you very much, but I'm going to politely decline at this time. Hudson elections, I believe, to be nonpartisan. It's how I approach things. It's how we have done elections in this city for many, many years. I also am asked the question, as you can imagine, on the doors about, are you a Democrat or a Republican? And my response is always, Hudson elections are nonpartisan. I've voted for Republicans, I've voted for Democrats in the past. I don't think it has any bearing on how someone should view candidates for local election.
Okay, thank you. Next question. No one has a question? Oh, wait. There.
Hello. So my question relates to the popular topics, YDC and Phase 2, and what I'm curious about, in your opinion, how much longer are we going to be talking about those two spots? It's been years, and is there going to be a plan, or when are we going to actually move forward and have an understanding of those two properties?
So I hope we can move forward and continue to move forward. I think on Phase 2, we've gotten to a good place following the vote in May. We've gone back and listened to residents and heard some of their concerns about density. We're focusing on the residential side first. I think You know, the interesting thing about Phase 2 in particular for Ward 2 is that Ward 2 actually voted for the project. So I've always been mindful of that fact and wanting to move things forward, because I agree. I think things have lingered for far too long on a number of projects. On the YDC, you know, I think that's a project that was obviously purchased by the city many years ago with the intent of economic development. I think there are still economic development opportunities there, but we need to be thoughtful and considerate about what types of development goes in there. It is, I understand, being marketed, and as additional properties and development occurs in that area, I think we should continue to market that, but we shouldn't jump at the first thing on that property in particular. We need to make sure we get the best and highest value for it. And if that best and highest value means, you know, reconsidering its use, then we should be doing that. But it's a conversation that needs to be had, and it's one that I think hasn't historically been had, at least in recent years.
Right. So, you know, Phase 2, you know, the timeline, I don't think the timeline's actually been laid out by council yet. It will happen soon. I mean, certainly there was a better use for that property than a salt dome and school buses. I think most of the community agrees with that. I think the community disagreed on the size and the scope of the development down there. But, you know, currently City Council has the power to move forward with that development as it now stands. You know, and I think that, you know, we should continue moving forward with the development. We may still disagree on that size and scope, but there's no reason to delay the use of that property. In terms of YDC was actually purchased not as an economic development engine. It was purchased because we wanted to control the property. We didn't want somebody else coming in. And the vast majority of that property was given to the Metro Park system, and we kind of got stuck with a little piece of it because of the way legislation was working at the time. So the YDC, we need to ask the community what they want to do with that property. I don't expect anything to happen quickly because there are other properties on the southern part of Hudson, like Patriots Way, that are already developed and ready to be utilized for economic purposes. So it'll be a little while before we could actually improve Boston Mills Road and provide for access for businesses into that area. But we definitely need to start asking the community what they want, because knocking on doors, we have all sorts of questions about the use for that property.
Yep. Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely.
So there was an incident over the weekend with the high school involving racial slurs and death threats. Do you, over the weekend there was an incident at the high school involving racial slurs and death threats to a certain group of people. Do you think there is an issue with the tolerance and acceptance of minorities in this town, and what would you pose to be done about it?
We're doing the back and forth thing, right? So, I mean, I think there's a problem with, you know, tolerance and acceptance throughout the United States. You know, it's what happened over the weekend is absolutely unacceptable, and I believe the school board's looking into it, the police are looking into it. You know, it crossed the boundaries of being impolite to being illegal and bullying and all sorts of things. And as a community, we need to condemn that wherever it occurs at all times. You know, the sad thing is that that type of behavior is taught by us as parents to our children. We're responsible for the fact that that happened. We need to look at ourselves and take a look at the message that we're teaching our kids. Completely unacceptable. We're one society, we bleed red, we're human beings, we all deserve respect.
So thank you for that question. This one hits particularly close to home for me. I spoke earlier about my son Milo. Both of my kids are adopted, and Milo is biracial. So when I heard about this incident that happened at the high school, I immediately thought of him and how he can be affected by the community in which he lives in. And for that reason, and really to answer your question about what should we do, I think we need to do more to encourage diversity in the city and to encourage different viewpoints and different sets of experiences. We have to talk about these things. We have to talk about them with our kids. We have to encourage our kids to talk about them with their friends and to call out the inappropriate use of racist language and certainly any kind of violence when they see it. But it's on us as leaders of the community and as parents to have those difficult conversations and to expose our kids to things that are, to people and to experiences that don't look like them, and to acknowledge that we aren't all the same, and that's good. That enriches a community when you have a differing set of viewpoints, a differing set of experiences, and a differing set of outlooks.
Thank you for that question, by the way. Any others? Well, I will ask one. We're going to wrap up in a second if there are no further questions. But one of the questions. Oh, do you have a question over there, ma'am? Mimi?
That's an interesting microphone. What I would be curious about has to do with how council approaches changes in the land development code that would allow Hudson to be more nimble with respect to adapting to changes in the reality of our climate system and fostering alternative sources of energy.
So I think the last part of that question might have gotten cut off, but changes, how council would adapt to changes in the land development code to respond to changes in the environment and climate change. Yeah. So I think that we need to be more nimble with that. It's one of the things that since I've joined council, I've asked a lot of questions about. I'm the council liaison for the Environmental Awareness Committee, and so they have brought in a number of speakers and resources about how we can ensure that Hudson remains committed to environmental conservation. There's a long history of that here. We love our streams and our watersheds, and we're incredibly good stewards of those. But we need to continue to adapt. Just by way of quick example, as we've been looking at the budget for the electric fund for HPP, I brought up, it looks like some of the revenue is starting to decline, and is that because more and more people are putting solar panels and things like that on their houses? And do we need to start planning for that? And I think the answer to that is yes. I think as the world continues to change, we have to adapt and change along with it, and we need to be encouraging people to do that, and working within our land development code to ensure that appropriate architectural standards are maintained, and that we continue to have the historic charm and the high standards that we've always had, but really adapt it in a way that will be responsive to the changing needs of the world.
So about half of my business is in the environmental, horticultural, or recycling industry. I'm the largest publisher of recycling content nationally and internationally. And global warming is real. It's a reality, and we all need to face that. In terms of how the land development code would change to reflect that, I think what we need to do is just be aware of the architectural changes that we want to incorporate into our housing and into our building, and make sure that that's reflected in the land development code so that it's permitted. So, solar panels, how would they be applied to houses? How would they look architecturally? How would we accept that look within the city of Hudson? I also believe in LEED development. I think, as a community, as we take a look at new construction, if we're doing anything on the city side, following LEED construction standards should be a norm. I mean, it should be a norm nationwide, and I would push really hard to make sure that we did that.
Jay, did you have a question?
I did, thank you. I've been somewhat concerned about the turnover of businesses in our core area in the village, and maybe that's typical of a small village like ours, but do you have any plans for improving the health of our local businesses and perhaps marketing them more to the outside world?
You know, the turnover of local businesses is a concern. The reality is that a lot of shopping today happens online. It has declined. It has reduced, foot traffic into stores. And the truth is, the rent in the downtown district in Hudson is fairly high, and there are only certain types of businesses that have really been able to thrive. Primarily restaurants. Hudsonites love going out to dinner. That being said, we need to continue to promote the businesses within the city of Hudson. We've got some really great events. I mean, we do, the Taste of Hudson. We have the Chris Kindelmarkt. We have the Art Festival. And the more of those types of events that we have as a community, the more people we can bring into the community and that recognize Hudson for what it is and the great things that we have going for us, the more they're going to come back and shop here. Living here, you actually really don't need to go outside of the city of Hudson to get almost anything. I mean, except for maybe Costco.
So I think local business is incredibly important to Hudson. It's what gives us the charm that we have. It's why people want to come and shop and eat and live here. And we need to protect that and try to preserve that. I think the way we do that is, continue with development that's going on downtown at Phase 2. I think adding in additional residences and an ability to walk to those to that Main Street location is critical and will be helpful. But I think it's also doing more to engage with some of the local civic organizations to use the Economic Growth Board, which is one of the boards and commissions in Hudson, to really give them direction to help promote those local businesses. I think to your point, promoting them even outside of Hudson. It's great to have Hudsonites shopping at our local stores, but we've got to do more to get out there and really share the good news about our downtown area.
Yes, in the back.
Excuse me.
Thank you both very much. As a past mayor of the city of Hudson, I'm always thrilled to see members of the community step up when the opportunity is there to run for elected office or serve on our commissions. One of my focuses and what I'm interested in is soon we'll have the time for a charter review commission to review our charters. We do periodically and appropriately. And it won't be, not far behind that is also a strategic plan. The world is changing very rapidly, in some cases more rapidly than many people can adjust to. And there's a future, being longevity, perhaps the aging population. I'd like to know what some of your thoughts are. And again, I thank you both for being candidates. And of course, Lisa, I'm a Ward 2 resident, and I appreciate all the service that you provided to us already. But what do you see as far as the future? I'm talking about 20, 30 years out, when our children will, and your young children will be active in the community, hopefully be here.
Sure. So that really is the crux of why I decided to first apply for the open position on council and why I am running, because I care what this community will look like in 20 to 30 years and beyond. I think we need to prioritize moving forward on projects, infrastructure projects and economic development projects at a faster pace than we are right now. Because as you say, the world is changing and it's changing quickly, and we need to make sure that we aren't left behind. That doesn't mean we barrel through and ignore what people say. I think we've got to communicate with people and let them understand what the plans are, how things may change, and how things will stay the same. Ultimately, if we can't continue to adapt, we will lose the ability to preserve that core culture and understanding of what Hudson is. So we've got to work collaboratively on that, and I think it's working not just within Hudson, but looking to some of our surrounding communities as well, and figuring out, are there different ways that we can partner with them on certain infrastructure projects or on certain other economic development projects that will help lift all of us up.
Yeah, good question. The city of Hudson, we don't want to be in a position where we're developing every square foot that we have in the city of Hudson. The people live in Hudson because they like the historic nature of the town. That doesn't mean that there aren't areas where we can develop. Obviously Phase 2, YDC, Patriots Way, those are areas that are going to provide for a future for the city of Hudson. But in my business, I'm in the media business, right? There hasn't been a more transformed industry than media in the past 50 years. So, we've got to continue to look at where we go long term and try and stay ahead of the game. I'm a technologist. I'm a Cisco certified network professional in routing and switching. I hold advanced certifications from Microsoft and Novell. There are about 1,000 people in this country who hold the technology certifications that I do. And, that really forces you to kind of look down the road and say, okay, what's this going to become, right? But at the same time, being a lifelong Hudson resident, I want to make sure that we still stay what we are. We're a small community with great schools, good infrastructure. It can get better, but we don't want to become Cleveland Heights. We don't want to become Solon. We don't want those communities. They're great communities, but you didn't move here because you wanted to be there.
Anything else? And I'm going to then ask one final question myself, which came up last week. I think it's worth asking again. And that is, with all the development and other stuff that's going on in the city, what can we do about the condition of city streets?
Yeah, so the city streets have obviously been a real issue. I spent this past summer riding with the Hudson Velo Group for training for the Velisano. It was a 193-mile ride over 2 days to raise money for the Cleveland Clinic for cancer. And that gave me, other than the fact of driving around the city of Hudson, it gave me a really firsthand experience of how bad the roads are in particular areas. There's been a suggestion that we should start taking out loans in order to accelerate road repair. And while that may be the only way at this point, because we've already used a lot of the money on other projects in the city of Hudson, not projects I would have spent it on, I would have spent it on infrastructure to begin with, but we need to accelerate the road repair. It's embarrassing as a community that our roads are in the condition they are, and it's even more embarrassing that the city says oftentimes that there isn't a problem. There's a problem. All you have to do is drive around the city to see it.
Well, I agree with that. There is a problem, yeah. And I think accelerating the road program and investing additional funds in improving the infrastructure of the city is incredibly important and is something that we have to do. We have to do it in a fiscally responsible way. I think the potential for borrowing to really speed that up and get through the main streets in Hudson, as well as some of the kind of concrete overlay streets, is a good first step. It doesn't mean cutting back on anything else we were already doing. And indeed, since I've joined council, and my understanding is that we've done this before, is as there are additional funds identified throughout the course of the year, those funds are put into the roads, and they need to continue to be put into the roads. It doesn't mean ignoring other projects, but certainly road and infrastructure funding is something that's critical. Just by way of very fast story, I have about 15 seconds left, I think. As I've been knocking on doors, I heard one woman say that her daughter was riding the school bus one day and was on, I think, Prospect, and went over a big bump. Her daughter bumped her head, got a concussion. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable, and we've got to do more to fix that.
Okay, I would like to thank both Lisa and Chris for coming here today. Please give them a big hand. vote for your favorite one in November if you live in Ward 2. I would also like to thank Chris again for being our timekeeper. Next week, we will have Ward 3 candidates Brett Shriver and Skylar Sutton. Also, there was a huge three-way or four-way communications failure with regard to Rebecca Leiter last week, who was ultimately was not able to come. So we are going to give her the opportunity to also come next Wednesday. Most of the questions you're getting are not very ward specific, so I don't think it's going to be a problem to have one Ward 1 candidate come with several candidates from Ward 3. So again, thank you for being here today. If you want to come next week and the week following and the week after that, please feel free to do so.
Thank you, George. This is one of the best meetings that we have all year, to invite our candidates and to have an open forum. And I really want to extend a very special welcome to everyone who came from the community, who are our guests today. It's just awesome to see the room this full. Lastly, I'd also like to thank Donna and Catherine, who were our microphone bearers and helped us get this job done right. As a final reminder, we have a board meeting next week. The Gala Committee will be meeting this Friday at noon at the Baldwin House. And we have the induction of the new Interact officers at Western Reserve School. So with that in mind, we're going to close the meeting today. We've got something coming. Oh, heavens. I forgot the most important thing. Oh, you could tell I'm a rookie at this. We have $16 for a payout, and the total jackpot is $530. This is getting significant. Lisa, would you please pick the ticket? Everyone ready? The final four. 2090. 2090. Phil Tobin, how wonderful. This could be the day. This could be the day. Thank you. There is your 16. Notice there's a black one in there. We'll and not today, Phil. Not today. Try again. And with that, we're going to suggest that you help us all connect the world. Thank you. And this meeting is adjourned.